Hello everyone, and welcome back to the series. I hope that you are enjoying your New Year's so far, despite all the highs and lows lately. In this episode, we will be going back to 1970, where we'll be taking a look at one of the most storied rock bands in our history, pretty much. Led Zeppelin's third album came out around the time when the hippie movement was starting to see a decline. Of course, this was not an overnight change, and a lot of the music that was popular in the 60s was still growing strong during this time. This longevity was largely reflected in the album, where we could still very much hear the hard rock, heavy metal, blues, folk, and funk, with most of the tracks retaining that electric sound. The only difference now is that Led Zeppelin introduced acoustics in some of their songs. On the one hand, this does mean that the album has a really strong start and then kind of mellows out toward the end. On the other hand, though, this was a transition that absolutely needed to happen because audiences and critics alike were not ready for the absolute hit after hit that would come from Led Zeppelin afterward. But I know that that's also the benefit of hindsight talking. This was, after all, a long anticipated album. And of course, people are going to be surprised and even disappointed that their favorite band does not entirely sound the way that they're used to them sounding. And as any artist will tell you, going in another direction is always going to be a huge creative risk. And in cases like these, playing the long game is truly a test in endurance. The rewards can really be worth it though, can they? This is another one of those albums that we had on rotation during car rides, so listening to it again definitely carries fond memories for me and brings me back to simpler times. Now, what does admittedly put a damper on the listening experience for me is the knowledge that Jimmy Page and allegedly Robert Plant, at the height of their careers, did have relationships and encounters with underage fans. Unfortunately, because this sort of power imbalance between musician and groupie was at its peak in the 60s and 70s, such unacceptable interactions with minors were normalized and probably even encouraged. Thankfully, we are moving toward a place in our society where we are holding people in power accountable, seeking justice for victims and survivors, and are condemning these behaviors rather than trivializing or even glorifying them. That is the extent of my commentary. As you know, I'm not one for celebrity gossip or the groupie culture. Please feel free to sound off in the comments, as always, with your own insights, while making sure to keep all discussions constructive and respectful. I often see Led Zeppelin being compared to Pink Floyd, and there's always this debate as to which one is better. Here's my take on it. I think that Pink Floyd has the production value that ages better. They were one of the spearheaders of psychedelia that blended futuristic, hypnotic, and otherworldly ambience that we feel connected to, but at the same time are still exploring. They are very artistic and became quite progressive in their later years. Their songs tend to be culturally relevant on a wide scale, contributing a whole new meaning to the blues. While a lot of Led Zeppelin songs are deeply personal and emotional, a lot of their content is truly a lot more fun and relatable to listen to while you're young. As you listen to their music, you might look back on it differently, or you'll yearn for a time that you can never get back. Whereas no matter when you're listening to Pink Floyd, you'll find yourself living in that moment and unpacking what's going on with you and the world around you. So yes, I do think that Pink Floyd is the more enduring band. But that's just me. I'm sure that you could come up with incredibly valid counterpoints as to why Led Zeppelin is the band with the greater impact. And I completely understand if newcomers and even veterans have a hard time going back to Led Zeppelin's albums because of the aforementioned history of some of the bandmates. But if you are interested in what the hippie era had to offer, you really can't go wrong with this one, aside from maybe a skippable song or two here and there. Thank you so much for listening, and from here on out, I will be adding to the mix different types of albums and genres, as well as formats. Stay tuned. Bye.